Joining the conversation in the studio now is, of course, Mr. Kayode Opeifa. He's a friend of the house. And together today, we'll take a look at Mr. President's speech and perhaps some of the takeaways from that speech. Thank you for being here again, Mr. Opeifa,
good morning.
this morning. All right, we head there, Mr. President. I'm going to start by, again, looking at how the President praised the founding fathers of Nigeria, and he was quick to say that for those who were thought that as we speak today, Nigeria will be a divisible entity, have something else up their sleeves. And of course, it went ahead to say that Nigeria remains one, and we will give everything that it takes to be one going forward. For you and for one who believes in the entity called Nigeria, what kind of hope is that assertion again, given that Nigeria will continue to be Nigeria irrespective of the many challenges facing the country?
Thank you very much, and let me join Mr. President in thanking God for what he has done to us as a people, as a country, as a nation, the last 63 years. And also to say that we don't take it for granted. Like the President said in his speech, which to me is very reassuring, inspiring, and much more a message of hope to us, touching on our diversity and making us to understand the diversity is more or less the reason why we're strong. And we should not allow the issues of religion, tribe, ethnicity to come between us and take away that glorious destiny God has made for Nigeria. The President also gave hope, a renewed hope, combining his speech at inauguration with that he made on July 31st, reminding Nigerians that we have gone through so many things as a nation. Currently, we have 7 consecutive democratic elections, the longest ever, reminding us that he is ready to take the burden, reminding us that he will remain committed, and giving us one of the best speeches you could imagine in the last 63 years, a speech from a president that was so clear and honest in purpose. He was true to type to accept that some of the reforms he has embarked on from the statement he made from the inauguration speech may seem, in actual fact, at giving pains, that we should look beyond those pains, focus, and at the gains. You see, it is rare to see a transparent, honest kind of speech. This speech, if you check in terms of, is about 14 minutes, about 32 or 33 paragraphs, compared to his previous one, which was about 41 paragraphs and even longer. This one was shorter.
It was concise.
And took and captured everything in the previous speeches and took us into the future, what we should expect going forward. So the speech addresses almost all Nigerians. It addresses the poorest of the poor, the elites, those who are beacon the nation, those who took us to this bad situation. It talked about our founding fathers. For those who don't know the history of Nigeria, it took us back to the fact that we are multi-ethnic, multi-religious, highly diverse. Then he addressed the judiciary, addressed the legislature, addressed the civil
society. Let me hold your thoughts, because again, I'm sure you will just go ahead to start talking about all of those sectors. Let me quote Mr. President here, and then I will go ahead to ask my question. I know you touched on this earlier on, but I want us to break it down. In Mr. President's speech, and I quote, he said, "Reform may be painful, but it is what greatness and the future require. We now carry the cost of reaching a future in Nigeria where the abundance and fruits of the nation are fairly shared among all, not hoarded by select and greedy few. In Nigeria where hunger, poverty and hardship are pushed into the shadows of an ever-fading past. There is no joy in seeing the people of this nation shoulder burdens that should have been shared years ago. I wish today's difficulties did not exist, but we must endure if we are to reach the good side of our future. End of quote. Here, Mr. President identified with all of the hardship in the land. But he did say also that no pain, no gain. So we must endure as a country to get to the next phase of the nation. And so if we were to go by the president's speech here and what he has said, for many who think that the president is an Aso Rock and he doesn't understand what the very ordinary people are facing. But by that speech, would you say that indeed Mr. President really understands what goes on at the very last level, the nitty-gritty of the Nigerian strata of the economy? Does he really understand what the people of Makoko, the people of Yenogwa, the people of in different parts of the country, what they're truly going through?
Okay. Like I said earlier, you see, that is sincerity of the speech. Maybe you might have had many presidents in the past alluded to the fact, sympathize, empathize with your pains. This one is different. This one is, he accepted that he has made some reforms that might seem painful.
True.
I know they are painful. So he knew before the reforms that they will show some pains.
Right.
He knew the people are feeling the pain. He's sincere to acknowledge the burden to take the people out of the pain. If you look at that speech, the way it was crafted, it was not crafted just to make a speech. And that's why you've not seen a lot of critics coming against that aspect of the speech. And he mentioned that he has instituted reforms to address those, and he listed those reforms. Where those reforms have not taken off, he emphasized why. And he promised that he would do everything to, and you know, he used some analogy. I will not be like those who build their family house in the middle of a swamp. What he's telling you is that he can, like any other person who is comfortable like this, I can decide to look everywhere. I don't want to be like them. I will not build the house of this nation on a mud. I would rather build it on a rock. And if I'm going to do that, you know, that's similar to what you have in the scripture. So I believe if he understands the implication before making those reforms, he understands the implication of what is going on, and he feels it. And if you look at the kind of thing in that speech going forward, you see that he actually addressed those pains, and he detailed few of the things that has happened that will remove those pains. And he did not shy away from the truth. And I believe, sincerely, it was from the bottom of his heart.
Right. He also talked about the fact that to ensure better grassroots development, we set up an infrastructure support fund for states to invest in critical areas. States have already received funds to provide relief packages against the impact of rising food and other prices. In this regard, we know that the states were, of course, allocated some funds. If you were to put what the federal government is doing and what the state should be doing, oftentimes everything will still go back to the federal government. People still asking, we do not know what government is doing. Yet, Mr. President has said here that we have asked states to do these things and cushion the effect of all this hardship. So for Mr. President to again state this in that speech, is this also in corroboration with the fact that the state should also cater to the needs of the people and not just the federal government?
Yeah, I think that's the essence of his mentioning what states are doing. We have, in my own understanding, we have 2 tiers of government. I count the states and the national government. Okay. And I see the local government as being part of the states. You see, each of these various sectors have their responsibility. As a president and the presidency and the national government, he had outlined his own responsibility. Now, we know through the NEC, states have accepted to handle the issue of palliatives.
Sure.
And some of the states are doing it. I'm very encouraging. While Nigerians may not be too happy with what is going on, I think the president knew that, and that's why he re-emphasized. I think that part of his telling the states that you have a responsibility. This is your responsibility. This is your responsibility. I can't go down to the state. He believes in true federalism. If you want to keep palliative food distribution, it's better done at the states and the local government. That's why he emphasized that. And what he needs to do at the level of presidency, the various ministries of government, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant on Sustainable Development Goal, you know, the one that has to do with Ministry of Transportation, the one of the PCNG Initiative Committee. He emphasized, and he actually outlined, and some are also going on through tax reform. That's the one that will go to the organized private sector.
Right.
You know, everybody, he used that speech to let Nigerians know these are the things we are doing. This person is responsible for this. This is what we are doing for this sector. And you know what? He also went as far as inclusion, mentioning that people with disabilities also must be taken care of. The issue of women and youth inclusion. So he used that opportunity to discuss the division of labor, what each sector of the economy, what each segment, what is arms of government are supposed to do. And he laid it down clearly. I believe this speech is for so many months and years. Scholars will still be examining.
Oh, most definitely, because it's more or less like a guide now. And so
I see that the State of the Nation
State of the Nation
just less than 15 minutes.
Okay. I'm glad that you were here the other day when we talked about the CNG initiative, the presidential initiative. And the president again mentioned this, and he talked about the need for cost-effective transportation, especially on the need for transport costs to be cheaper and affordable. And so here he said the buses will operate a fraction of current fuel prices, positively affecting transport fares, and that the new CNG conversion kits will start coming in very soon as all hands are on deck to fast-track the usually lengthy procurement process. We're setting up training facilities and workshops across the nation to train and provide new opportunities for transport operators and entrepreneurs. This is a groundbreaking moment where, as a nation, we embrace more efficient means to power economy. In making this change, we also make history. Meaning that the CNG buses, there is a process. It doesn't seem like Nigerians understand that there is a process to this, because once the president mentioned CNG buses months back, it felt like we'll start seeing the buses the next day. But here, Mr. President is also being categorical and saying the process is on, meaning that it might still take, some time for this to come in. How much time really do we need to wait as Nigerians for the buses to come in?
Thank you. If you look at the speech, I think he dedicated about 2 paragraphs to the issue of transportation, which is one of the 15 takeaways you have in that speech. And let me commend LTV for championing that cause, because I looked through all the media. I believe LTV was the first to actually take on this challenge. And what the president did is he noticed, that's another way to tell you that he knows what is going on on the ground. That people are, when are we going to see these CNG buses? But prior to that, states have started introducing buses. I think just yesterday we heard the announcement of Benue links about 100 buses. But what's this? Borno State have introduced 70 mass transit buses. Ogun State has also introduced some buses. Lagos State had worked at commercial commissioning of the rail blue line,
and even the electric buses. The electric buses have also started.
So what the president did here is, now he has mentioned the issue of CNG buses twice in his previous speeches. What he did now is to tell you he acknowledges there are issues with the deployment. We don't manufacture those buses, and even if we manufacture those buses. It will take some time for the manufacturer. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, he mentioned procurement processes, and he said it will be expedited.
Right.
And so he's telling you that I know you are waiting. I know you are expecting it. And the intention is not just to introduce buses.
Right.
The intention is to lower
The
transportation
prices.
he said for economic growth and for prosperity. So he also used that opportunity to let Nigerians know when these buses come by, the prices of the cost of transportation will come down. And that takes him back to what he said at the inauguration. He made two bleak statements. Fuel subsidy is gone. He's going to look at the forex rates.
Yes, the
and
parallel markets.
those two issues looks like they have contributed to inflation.
True.
And in that speech, he mentioned the tax reform and then economic reforms to address one side. Then he now mentioned the PCNG initiative. So what we should take off from here is people asking for timeline. You remember I said to me, timeline is virtual because I am aware as at that time that procurement would be an issue.
Right.
However, what that has done in the background, Nigerian companies have started putting up structures to manufacture CNG buses.
CNG buses.
He also said in the previous speech that they will be bringing in some CNG buses. It might interest you to know many of these buses will be manufactured, assembled
here
locally. He now addressed frontally the issue of conversion kit. You know what that's addressed to jobs. It addressed the issue of entrepreneurship.
Right.
It also addressed the issue of growth. So he took that opportunity to address, yes, we are aware, but we are painstakingly putting all these structures in place so that the main objective of those initiatives will be achieved. It doesn't come and become another intervention. And I think it deserves credit for that.
Can this also be linked to the provincial wage award that Mr. President has graciously approved? Of course, during that broadcast, he actually said it was for low-income earners. But before the close of that day, after Labour meeting with, of course, the Chief of Staff and the federal government team, it was said that it's a cutting across all cadres in the civil service for 6 months. Should this also be more or less like, okay, give or take maybe in 6 months, all of those measures that we are putting in place should have started yielding results. And at that time, we might not need the wage award anymore to cushion the effects of some of those things, because a timeline of 6 months thereabout should at least suffice to put all of these things in place.
That also brings to fore the economics aspect of the president, developmental economics. He knew the moment you remove fuel subsidy, the moment you bring to parity the exchange rate, removing the arbitrage involved in it, what you will have is immediate inflation. Now, because the intervention will not take immediate effect, you need to give people some purchasing power. So what that 35,000 now would do is to provide that purchasing power. Don't forget, he mentioned 25,000. It's an economy. But I put
figures together.
I felt, but after meeting with Labour, within 24 hours.
Not even up to 24 hours.
It was adjusted. That is, okay, that means he has been able to carry the organized labor unions in. He has gotten their buy-in now. So we are all in this
together.
But I can tell you, we're not going to see a labor crisis in the nearest future.
That's an assurance.
Because they have jointly.
So it's more or less like a working relationship.
The 35,000 naira is to say, look, I feel the pain. Temporarily take this. I believe, if you look at that 35,000, for minimum wage, that's 100% to those who are on 30,000. For those who are on up to 300,000, a level 16 and the rest, that's about a 10,000, 10%
increase.
Additional money that is may not be taxable based on what is also being discussed. So what that would do is that would take care of current inflation from that period, to take care of the transport increases fares for where the state government have not been able to regulate it downward. So it also takes us back to the fact that in that there was deep thought into these reforms, and there were deep thoughts
Right.
into what needed to be done, and he feels the pain.
Right.
And we will start seeing
The
the gain.
effects.
But within the next 6 months, the wage negotiation will start up on the minimum wage, and that should end maybe within 3 months or so. So technically, in the meantime, we can't conclude on wage increase because it's a tripartite agreement. It's very,
and
very
so this
complex.
should just
So take
suffice
this and
until that is done. The president also talked about the CBN. We know we do have an acting CBN governor now who's just resumed less than a week, and he did say that, of course, he pledged a thorough house cleaning of the CBN, and in weeks to come, the findings should be made public. But he did say that wise tax policy is essential to economic fairness and development. And of course, linking this with the tax reforms committee, which he put in place. So if you put the reform ongoing in the CBN and of course the tax policy, reform policy movement, and what the president is looking at are creating, well, at least creating a buffer with the economy, especially where we have the dollar now trading over 1,000 naira, about 1,000 naira with the naira. Are you confident that all of the things Mr. President is doing or saying has any effect at all on our monetary and fiscal policy?
First, I have no doubt in the capacity of
Mr.
President on economic issues. During his inauguration address, he said he's going to take tough economic
initiatives.
And two he mentioned, and those two he has taken. And what he has, and at the center of that is the monetary and the fiscal policy. Now, the monetary policy has to do with the central bank. The fiscal policy has to do with that's the one he's dealing with taxes. So he has taken both frontally. Now, the reforms going on in the CBN is to reassure Nigerians, because it's generally believed that a lot of resources are wasted through the last CBN regime. So what you see is a clean slate, and the new team is expected to now begin the reforms without any interference. The same thing with the tax. We've started seeing the gains of the tax reform. The organized private sector have started acknowledging some of the things. You see the 7.5% stoppage on the diesel, VAT tax on diesel. A lot of taxes are now being harmonized together. A lot of reliefs are now being given to, not waiver, a relief.
Relief.
So that, and then the tax committee has also swung into action, including experts and all the other institutions that are relative to internally generate revenue sector. So what that is telling us is that this president is ready to take bold decisions. This president is ready to carry the burden. This president is ready to take responsibility. And this president or this presidency meant business. And it is for everybody.
As we wrap up this conversation today, let's quickly wrap up on this note where Mr. President acknowledged, of course, the dynamism of the National Assembly as well as the judiciary as a pillar of democracy and fairness. Very quickly, the strength of both other two arms of government at ensuring that the executive succeeds.
That's one of the aspects that I'm very, very happy about. You know, for those who don't have who have short memory for history, or for those who don't appreciate history, especially the younger generation. That speech is alluding to what these two arms of government have done to our democratic system in the last 24 years. We've had 7 consecutive democratic elections. We've had issues. People have gone to court. The court have adjudicated and have passed judgment. Through the judgments of the court, the legislature, the National Assembly have made new laws, new legislations, new reforms. And through this combination of these two, we've been able to stabilize the confidence in us. And it's indirectly also speaking to those who are still having doubts about our democratic system, about the fairness of our judiciary, and about the competence of our National Assembly. He's telling them in the last 24 years, these arms of government have made us to see peace and continuity in democracy. And it's also an indirect appeal to those who still have doubt and to assure those two arms of government that the executive and Nigerians are with them.
Right.
Don't forget, the president spoke as president in this speech. He also said he's speaking as a Nigerian. So he's speaking the minds of a lot of Nigerians rather than just speaking like commander-in-chief of the armed forces.
As we close today, Mr. Opeifa, of course, when you started, you said that speech was of a renewed hope to Nigerians. Again, your closing remarks to Nigerians this morning, because of course a lot of people are wondering when are we going to get to that promised land, or when exactly is the renewed hope coming. So your charge to Nigerians this morning as we continue to await a better time ahead for the country.
Yeah, all I can say to Nigerians, I don't want to use fellow Nigerians because the president used fellow Nigerians. It's just that we just need to we continue to show courage, compassion, and commitment, like the president have said. There is a brighter future ahead of Nigeria, and for we Nigerians, the best way for us to enjoy this is to remain steadfast. We persevered enough. We've been patient enough. We have been trusting enough. We now have a government that promised to renew hope and is already given that. Let's give this government and this president and this presidency the necessary support. Let's continue to have hope. Let's continue to be faithful, and let's continue to thank God for what he has done in 63 years.
Thank you so much.
Happy Independence Day.
Thank you so much, Executive Director, Mr. Dr. Kayode Opeifa, for coming on the program today.
Thank you very much.
Well, Dr. Opeifa has told us as Nigerians, we must continue to keep hope alive. We must be compassionate, committed, and of course, continue to trust in this administration. Indeed, hopefully, it will be a better and a renewed future for us all as Nigerians. But of course, we need to play our roles as individuals. Thank you for watching the Tuesday edition of the program. God willing, 9 a.m. tomorrow will be another time to join the Morning Delight crew. Enjoy the rest of your day. I am Abimbola Bello. Bye for now.